I'm having fun though. How'd that come across?
Oh, that was good.
I suppose not. You're doing a good job though. I think you're running all the diagnoses.
I heard that saxophone and I thought it was a tenor.
Sorry, man.
There's just one.
Yeah.
Very good.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dale Ens, and I'm the chair of the board for cSPACE Projects, Inc., which is a pretty fancy title for a guy who just works with 8 other terrific people, one of whom is here tonight, and I think there'll be others joining us. So I've had the privilege of acting as a volunteer with cSPACE since 2018, and have been a keen observer and fan and cheerleader of the outfit since about 2011, when it was just a twinkle in the eye of the Calgary Foundation and CADA and the arts community in Calgary. And so it's my pleasure tonight to welcome you all here. I'd like to begin by thanking our musicians who kicked this thing off, Daniel Pelton and James Watt. I thought they were terrific, and I want to thank them. And I think it's also appropriate to thank COVID-19. Because I know that we will enjoy tonight and we'll appreciate everything about this evening, but I think it's even made all the more pleasurable given the fact that we've gone through so much inactivity for so long, for these long 20 months. So I think the virus is deserving of a round of applause, don't you? So I was asked to open this up tonight, and I was given 2 minutes, and everybody knows that I can't possibly get a microphone in my hand and spend only 2 minutes with it. I fall in love with this thing. It's wonderful. So I thought what I would do is I would do what I think this evening is built around, and that is to express some gratitude because I think we're all grateful to be here. We're certainly grateful for this wonderful surroundings and the cSPACE King Edward facility that we're in. But in particular, I've got a number of people that I would really like to thank, and I know I'll miss many, many people, but I'd like to thank the board of directors that works with us. They're a really interesting, eclectic group of wonderful mission-focused individuals who sit at the back of the room and provide a little bit of strategic direction to what I believe to be a wonderfully well-managed and well-handled organization. So thank you to that wonderful board. If you ever had a chance to meet them, you'd say, gee whiz, we should get those guys because they're pretty good. I think there's also a significant measure of thanks I want to offer to the tenants who occupy this space. They're a remarkable group of people, artists, creators, cultural organizations, community associations or community groups. They have shown unbelievable determination and doggedness and resilience throughout this entire horrifying 20 months. And they haven't left us. They've stayed with us. We've helped them as much as we can, but bless their hearts because they've made this thing work, and I think that the future is very bright for all of them, and we're tremendously grateful that they've seen their way through. Let me see what else I got. I want to thank everyone who's agreed to participate tonight. There's a tremendous lineup who I will not even attempt to refer to, but thanks to all the folks who are participating tonight to make this a wonderful, provocative evening. It's going to be inspiring and I'm sure very, very interesting and just kind of, I don't know, joyful. But now on to the more important stuff. I'm going to get lost and I'm going to hand my microphone over to Dieter Schurig, who is the CEO of cSPACE. I'm sure there isn't a person in this room who doesn't know him, but if you don't, you should know that Dieter has been with this outfit from the start as well. So he was there with the twinkle in his eye when this thing was spawned and born. And I have to say that when we lost Reed Henry, who was our initial CEO, we thought, gosh, can Dieter do this? And it's interesting because he worked in the shadow of Reed for a long, long time. And when he emerged from that shadow, we realized what an absolute gem we have in Dieter. He's a possessor of remarkable skills. Remember that this thing was a beat-up, old, ramshackle, horrible old building that was, the next best thing to a crack house, and it turned into this. And while Reed was a tremendous force, pulling this thing together, Deeter was right there by his side, and their twin skills brought this thing to fruition. So Dieter's got amazing skills on that whole development side, which I think is a real interesting thing. But along with that, he's got myriad talents on the creative side and in terms of his leadership skills with his small but absolutely mighty team that works with Deeter to make this place hum and sing. So enough of pumping his tires. He does have a performance review coming up on Monday. And it may come as quite a shock to him, given all the nice things I've just said about him. But nonetheless, I don't want to create any expectations. So, with no further ado, please welcome our CEO and your MC for the evening, Dieter Schurig.
Welcome, everybody. No pressure at all, right? With that kind of lead-in. It was a good idea at the time to put on an event, just be ahead of a performance review. Not having done one in quite some time, given the context that we find ourselves in. So, nonetheless, thank you all for coming here. I've got a fair amount of notes this time because I'm so rusty after this duration of time. But I just wanted to say that I feel incredibly grateful to be a part of this. As Dale mentioned, the entire project, when we acquired the site, it was 10 years ago already to this day. And it was bought on a whim with no plan, and it came thereafter, right? And since then, we've seen the complete redevelopment of an entire city block. And we're really just at that moment now, and that's been thanks to partners, as well as deep involvement by the creative community and multiple stakeholders. So that's incredibly rewarding to be a part of. I also wanted to say that we're sharing an in real life experience here, which is remarkable with friends and with neighbors on either side of us, which is fantastic, with partners and artists within the community. So that's lovely in itself. And we're also broadcasting this live because we think that's a great idea as well. So for housekeeping, just know that we've required vaccination status, we're maintaining a reduced occupancy, and we're being part of that restrictions exemption program. But while you're seating, drinking a glass of wine and having a cracker, by no means do you need to keep your mask on. But as you feel comfortable to do so, you can wear your mask as needed. Performers and those on the panel are distanced and will not be wearing them, so you can see our lips move, which is fantastic. Now, as a departure for tonight, I wanted to disclose that the impetus for this event is because cSPACE has a mission to develop spaces, but also activate them and support collaboration and community-led change. And our vision is about supporting artists, nonprofits, cultural organizations, and ultimately giving them the supports for successful enterprises, all the while enriching our lives as citizens and increasing the vibrancy of our neighborhoods, and also, of course, just making our city a better place to live in. So we feel really pleased to be part of that work in our city as city builders. Now, what could be better than that? Ultimately, I don't know. I think this is a pretty fantastic enterprise to be a part of. But that said, shifting to the 2020 Wavelength Project, this was born out of the need to connect with community when it was incredibly difficult to do so. And so while all of you appreciate amidst the global COVID pandemic and rotating lockdowns, being able to connect as a community has been incredibly difficult. And it's been, ultimately a gut punch to vibrant placemaking and community endeavors. But nonetheless, obviously, as Dale has mentioned, we're starved for it. It's essential. We're already behind schedule because we couldn't get you out of the corridors to come to the show. So clearly people are needing to connect, wanting to connect, and that's so incredibly important. So arguably so essential now, and especially going forward as we heal from this difficult time. Now, please be warned, this event itself is an experiment. It's an improvisation into a new hybrid in-person as well as broadcast, as well as pulling people in on Zoom and live performance and so forth. So quite a challenging technological endeavor, and we're hoping that it all goes smoothly. So I want you to think of us and think, yes, we can. Yes, we can. Okay, so on that note, I'm so pleased to relay that the Wavelength Project was realized by an inspiring group of artists who are empathetic, both in the conception as well as the realization of this project. And ultimately, the impetus was to create a cultural activation to connect with the community about what matters now. And if we kind of transport ourselves back, 15 months ago, 16 months ago, in those early days, what matters now was pretty profound, I think, as we were experiencing lockdown and isolation and figuring out where our kids go and how do we work and so forth. And the beauty of that is that, and the underpinnings from this Wavelength Project, is that artists were committed to connecting with community and trying to find ways to do that. So trying to make sense of the world and understand the different wavelengths that we're on and different perspectives. So the project itself was conceived of in 3 phases. One was a community engagement phase, an exchange with the community. 2 was to activate and animate our physical spaces and our digital spaces in a safe way. And the 3rd was to create an interactive artwork that could engage the community as a beacon of hope amidst a remarkably challenging time. So quite an ambitious undertaking amidst the pandemic, and we had incredibly high aspirations for what this project could do. Clearly, without inspired artists and creative thinkers, this wouldn't have been possible. And it's a great pleasure to introduce those that will be joining us on our panel. An amazing group of esteemed, thoughtful, and creative individuals, community builders, change makers. So please join me, welcome to the stage Andy Moro. He's a multidisciplinary designer and lead artist for the Wavelength Project. Come on up, Andy. Yeah, grab a seat on the end. Next up, Kellie Hampton, a Calgary-based artist and thinker. Come on up, Kellie. Yay. Wakefield Brewster, poet and spoken word artist, joining us tonight. And Grace Coulter Sherlock, an architect, an old friend of mine from LeMay Architects. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. And I also want to thank our neighbor sponsors. This project wouldn't have been possible without the generous support of the Edward Curated Living next door, Rockwood Custom Homes on this side, and LeMay, who supported this project from the beginning. So thanks to them. These partners made the project possible by supporting artists, designers, fabricators, technicians, who all became part of this interesting Wavelength project, obviously recognizing their value and their commitment to community building. Now, before I launch in, the panel's going to have to wait patiently here for a minute. I want to share some dates on the time and space that we find ourselves in and kind of make an acknowledgement. And first, I want to say that this amazing theater space that was so lit up with cultural activities when it first opened is only just over 3 years old. And half of its existence has been amidst a pandemic. So that's kind of remarkable to think of in terms of the time and the space and the ambitions and vision that we had for this place coming alive and contributing to the community. The next one is that these stones here, as part of this old school, were laid 110 years ago, which I don't know about everybody else. It seems like a long time. But really, there's people that are still alive. You know, there's people that are still alive older than 110 years ago. So within the grand scheme of things, it's not really that old at all. But the whole impetus for those stones being chiseled and laid here is the Great Fire, Calgary's Great Fire, which is in November, this November, 135 years ago. So a little bit further from when the school was built, but really not all that long ago either. And so what I've been thinking about is that what's important to remember is that underneath all this is the land. And when we think about this land being stewarded for thousands of years before we came along, that's pretty profound. So acknowledging that and kind of recognizing the importance of that, I want to acknowledge on behalf of cSPACE that we acknowledge McKinstis and we honor that we live, we work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, and Métis Nation Region 3, and acknowledge that all nations, Indigenous and non, who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. A pretty remarkable place to be. Now, it doesn't end there. This is pretty incredible. Today, I'm so thrilled that we have a special guest, Dr. Leroy Littlebear, that has agreed to provide a blessing for this gathering. Now, Leroy Littlebear's lifetime of accomplishment includes some of the most political achievements for Indigenous people in Canada and around the world. His leadership has led to a United Nations Declaration for Rights of Indigenous People, changes to the Constitution of Canada, and he's influenced the lives of thousands of students. Leroy has been awarded the Alberta Order of Excellence, and together with his wife, AMIDST First Rider, are tireless community champions. Now, last week, as it happens in talking with them, I learned that Leroy and AMIDST are not only endeavoring to restore bison throughout the prairies, but they were also immediate neighbors down the street to this school in the 1990s. So it's pretty cool. You never know who you're going to kind of cross paths with. And what I find incredibly touching about that is that a few years ago, when we were developing the master plan for this site and working with Rockwood Custom Homes next door, we realized that there was an opportunity to create a poet's walk and immortalize a poet laureate's poem that he had written for us, and that was Chris Demeanor. But as time went on, it didn't feel like that was enough somehow, as remarkable as the poem was. And so there was a poem from a 1967 teacher, which I thought, that was pretty nice too, to have the kind of legacy of the school honored as well as the arts reuse. But the third piece was about Dr. Leroy Littlebear. And I had come across a quote that we decided to immortalize, if you will, on our Poet's Walk. And his words go like this. Every society, in one way or another, lays claim to a territory. And within that claimed territory, a culture arises from the mutual relationship with the land. And it is through this mutual relationship with the land that cultural icons, symbols and images, values, customs, ceremonies, stories, songs and beliefs of people are developed. And this in turn are embodied into the very being of the people. And so today I'm delighted, everybody cross their fingers, technology willing, that Leroy can join us from Treaty 7 lands to the south and share a blessing for our gathering this evening. Hey, so far so good. Welcome, Leroy.
Okay. Nistona Coke, he got skinny out. He nuxiks, Gano. So Gitapio, Genenuktu Chitapi. I was introducing myself. My Blackfoot name is Lowhorn. I'm of the Small Ropes Band, and we belong to Kainai, or the Black Tribe, and we're of the Blackfoot Confederacy. I am very honored to be part of the program of cSPACE in your gathering. and to say a prayer, a blessing for your gathering. And so please join me in the prayer, each in your own way. And after the blessing, I would like to say a few words. Yeah. Okay. Ayu istipata piyo. Ayu natusi kumiki sumak. Han nakita spa pekkana suika kikonomia kakatusi wakaki. Kita ksan katsumatpua. Kaksakim muksanane kaksakatus pumuksanana istipata piyo pa taksakakikoksay sanane. Hu kispumu kinatsa kimmata spinana nutsta paspinane kaki. Hu taksa katu pinnana makististum sinishkaki nuhta hestu tuut spinnane kaki. Nuhta sipisut spinnane kaki. Hanna kis nutsa makaki. Kitsa sawato me akawaks teista pikaia wannikka uksukua väksi ukusua väksi kaki. Aksa kaatu me aksupukitsa sawato me aksukaapsia. Hau kennakas tsistum juva kaikini maa tässä puutua saatk. Aksikkinä pukkitsa sawato man maakumka tyiksi kuihkaaki. Akkonäin. Itama passia. Kaukennakani tautumaakkin aina kaaki. Aina havaatsemuiskawa kaaka ja tuumupistaatsiwa kaaki. Ispummu saumataa puhtumia niin päätäpiuksenne kaaki. Uukemuukse kaaki. Naapii kueksi kaaki. Ja mahkutsesta piitsi saamniitsesta piapii kaaki. Ja ispummu saataksikin näin. Uutesta piituutsiin mennään. Kennakaaki. Omianesta päästötsemmiksi aamuksi pisata piisikääkään, kun omianesta sukita piiksi, pisat sukita piiksi kaikki. Ahkumanasta puhtuumia aamuksi sukaa piisistä itämistä tuija, mutta piiksää itämää piistäs, sitä sukaa piikan nuuka näitä piua kaikki. Takits piapuauhkah pinaa nouka neitä. Miksi stani kana pikapi kumimma pikina piakseta piakaaki huuken hakum khatuiksi kuitenkin mitä pekas pinanannik hannik kunskuika kita pääsummikas pinnane nukusennaneksi kaake tahkita hpuki tama passi mennana kaaki huuken nokanasta pohsiska kenneka hu niksu kuennaneksi ja steitsi pam seippumaa piika nekska piikaaki hennäsen uhkoksiskueaaki hu misami päätä piuksene na piuseni I taamista vatsemaani kamotani hennäsen noksiskatuupi noksissa kuikaaki hu I would like to sing a song for you, and I'll explain afterwards the song. And la, hey, la, la, hey, la, la. Hey, la, 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 hey, la, hey, la, la. Hey, la, 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 Oh, oh. You know, these indigenous songs, these Blackfoot song in this case, they're pieces of vocal art. And I wanted to contribute to the art that Wavelength is bringing about. These songs are as vocal art, they're the synchronization of all the different sounds in the totality of the environment that surround you, whether it be the wind going through the trees, through the leaves, and so on, whether it be the rippling of the water as the river goes by, the songs of the birds, and so on. And sooner or later, the creator of these songs puts little bits and pieces of those sounds and so on, and come up with a song. This particular song is part of a puppet show called Eniskim. It's about the buffalo. It's a puppet show that celebrates the return of the buffalo. And in fact, that puppet show will be performed again this coming summer as part of the World Stage Design Conference that's going to take place at the University of Calgary. So I thought I'd explain to you how these songs come about. I just think of, I wonder how Beethoven comes and brings about his music. Well, that's how these songs come about. I also want to leave you with a thought, and that is, I've said this to a number of audiences, and the message that I've given those audiences is that prior to Columbus and European appearances in the Americas, there are estimates of the population of indigenous people in the Americas as high as 125 million people. And, you know, when DeSoto in the 1520s or thereabouts came up from what is now Mexico into the Mississippi River, heading to what is now Florida, he wrote about towns along the Mississippi that had populations of 60, 70,000 people in these towns, as he called them. About 100 years later, when Jamestown was established by the British, there was no sign of those towns that DeSoto wrote about. Today, all we see is snake mounds and other pieces of ruins as indications of those towns that DeSoto wrote about. And you can see that it was really the introduction of diseases that indigenous people were not immune to that brought about pandemics that wiped out populations. And today, indigenous people are just now starting to recover. You can, if we fast forward the video, so to speak, and bring it to our modern day, COVID-19. I'm glad Brenn didn't talk about COVID-19 and that we should thank COVID-19, and I agree, because COVID-19 gives us a chance to reflect. See, COVID-19 is something that hasn't happened to our populations worldwide, globally. Just like the atmospheric river weather storms that are happening in British Columbia and on the East Coast. Hey, those are interferences in our normal ways of doing things in our everyday lives. And so what happens is we have to stop and reflect as to how to deal with those types of interferences. Wavelength is giving us an opportunity to engage in a new art, in a new piece of art. That new art is the art of recovery. The art of recovery. And that is, how do we deal with when something new happens to us, where we have to stop and rethink our life ways. So I'm very, very thankful that Wavelength has undertaken a new way of looking at things and sharing it with our communities. Those are the thoughts I wanted to leave with you today. Thank you.
So thank you, Leroy. Thank you for those words. I feel like we have a concluding sentiment already that captures everything that we're going to cover tonight. So thank you so much, Leroy, for joining us. I'm going to jump up here on the panel now, and we'll resume and continue on with the conversation about how the Wavelength Project was initiated and get to know these amazing people that are up here. So I'd like to start with Andy and then just move through the rest of the panel, but relaying who you are, where you're from, what makes you you, and what your practice is.
Hello, everybody. Wow, it's just surreal. I don't know if we're in a dream right now. Is this, this is where you're not wearing pants at school or something? It feels a little like you have no mask on. It's pretty amazing. Thank you for being here. My name is Andy Moro. I'm a multidisciplinary mutt. My ancestry is mixed European and Muskegwa Cree, but as recently as my grandfather, there's adoption and displacement. We don't claim a territory, we just claim our ancestry and our knowledge of who we are, and I just share that now. But being a mutt and being a bridge person, as my amazing partner Tara Bagan, who's in the audience, defines us, really mostly means that white people say things around you before they realize who you are, and then you can call them out on it very quickly. That happens a lot, more than you'd think. I work primarily in theater design and production, performance design and production, also sculpture and installation work, and community-based initiatives like this one. I grew up in Ontario, Southern Ontario, spent a long time in Toronto, ran a community engaged organization there, did a lot of work in a part of town called Kensington Market, and from there we went out to reserves and remote communities, and just really tried to bring opportunity and materials and resources, not ideas because all the ideas are already there, just kind of trying to share the wealth that exists in the rich places, and make art and let art be the driving force. Now I run a company called Article 11 with my partner Tara Bagan, who also is the outgoing Simonovich Laureate this year, a greatest playwright in the nation, is what that means, sitting at the back of the house there. I'm very honored and proud to be selected by her to walk around town. So we live here in Calgary now. We've been here for about 5 years. We came out here from Ontario, and very, very proud to call this home and make this the place where we practice our work. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kellie Hampton, Calgarian. I'm an abstract expressionist artist. Traveled a lot. I use both sides of my brain. The other part of me is a health and safety coordinator in oil and gas and environment and pipeline and all sorts of things. So I wear two very strong different hats, which makes my brain happy. Abstract expression is my muse, is my happy place. Traveled to a lot of places, used a lot of different inspiration points. Just sort of got brave and did it at a studio downtown. Have lots of charity events and gatherings back in the good day. Enjoyed all of that, and yeah, happy to say I'm an artist in Calgary.
Good evening and warmest welcome. My name is Wakefield Brewster, and I'm a professional poet and spoken word artist. I began my performance career as a young child. 6 years old, I began playing classical piano. Then I began with percussion, and then I went through university with it. The performing arts have always been part of me. Poetry was something that I did in the background, never brought it to the forefront with anyone because I was hoping to be a rare thing in the arts. I'm born in Toronto, and I wanted to be one of the only black male concert pianists in Europe in amphitheaters playing for crowds on stages on pianos that cost more than cars. That's pretty unique for a little black dude. So that was a driving thing in my life, always looking to actually occupy 88 keys and a different country. I didn't expect the power of poetry and a life of lyricism to take over. So I have always had my life in the arts. It is poetry and spoken word arts that are my foray into the world. But poetry really is the way that I relate to the reality of my surroundings. It saved my life, and it has given me a life. I feel that when you look at biology and you look at how much sperm got to do swimming for you to be the second one in and then be here, you actually have a whole lot more chance winning the lottery than you do being born. So every time I wake up on this side of the dirt, considering the life that I've been living and how poetry and the arts and healing inside of it, as our esteemed elder said, the art of recovery, I really do believe that I'm walking that, talking that, and I'd like to share that with the world around me. I'm very fortunate to be alive, and I'm very fortunate to dodge death 6 times. So with the time that I have left and the energy that I am, that's all we have to really do with our equation. What do you want to do with the energy you are with the time you've got? I want to share all the love I've got through the art of poetry, connection, and be damn COVID-19, because it turned into a cocoon of creativity for me and a catalyst for creation and collaboration. And I hope that you all see, feel, and hear that too as the night goes on. Thank you.
I'm not sure how I'm supposed to follow that up. Exactly, Wakefield. Hi, everyone. I'm Grace. I'm the architect. My name is Grace Coulter Sherlock. I am an architect. Picking up on your statistic odds, I'm a mother of 2 twin girls. I am also born and raised local, just south of the city, so this is my home, and I know it very intimately. I'm very connected to it, and I spend a lot of time thinking about all of those beautiful moments that you just picked up on that I can't quite eloquently rephrase. So I am not a poet. I am a conduit. I work with many beautiful creative minds in the city, in many cities, and my role is really orchestrating how those creatives come together to create a collective, a whole creation of places, of spaces, revitalization. So obviously, for me, being here tonight, being on the stage, being in this company, digital, and in the presence of these incredible minds here is really special and important given what we've gone through. I'm also an old classmate of Dieter's. Side note.
You never know how these things work out. You never know. So let's, just being mindful of time, we're gonna start picking up here really quick, just through the panel, memories of those early days. Early days, 2020, March, April, May. What are some things that come to mind? We'll go with Grace and across.
Yeah, early days. So, I mean, I think we all have a memory of the collective, the shock, the grief, the complete shift, as it were. There's also a call to action in a lot of the design industry that was thinking about space creation, architecture, design, and so forth. So it was this crazy moment between trying to work through a lot of grief and uncertainty and things where it felt like the ground had slipped out between your feet when you were trying to raise very young children, and at the same time being like completely ready to think about what does healthy space, what does safe space, what does the future of the city look like, how can we galvanize people and reposition ourselves and relearn what we thought we knew. So it was a really interesting moment.
I think I'll just speak to the moment that I remember. I'm also a registered massage therapist, and everything that I do in my life, because I've got that time ticking, is I throw myself right into it all. So I love everything that I do all day long. And I remember how COVID felt like a rumor. It was buzzing around, people were playing, coughing and stuff. And then one day, March 19th, I believe it was, March 19th for me, my last massage finishes, I'm cleaning up, and the esthetician comes, knocks on my door and says, Wake, my friends call me Wake. She says, Wake, clean up your room like you're not coming back. And that's when I really felt it, because it was, I believe, a Friday. I think March 19th might have actually been a Friday. It doesn't matter. I think it was a Friday. And we were packing up not just for the weekend, but we were just packing up. That's when it felt real.
I'm going to skip you, Kellie, and come back.
Yeah, okay.
Andy?
Similarly, I mean, so much has been said about the vibe, and it was unbelievable, of course. We were all there. I remember being in Montreal. We were rehearsing a piece that, and I'm happy to say, you know, we actually just opened the piece that was interrupted by COVID in March 2020, and I remember walking out of the room and saying, yeah, well, you know what, I'll be back in a couple weeks anyway. It was already scheduled, so yeah, we'll have this a bit of downtime and see you in April. And of course, that April a year later is when we actually did reconvene and build that piece. But I remember feeling, you know, when things did shut down that day, when it was like the doors were closed and no one was on the street and people were walking a little further away from one another, and you know, I remember feeling like, damn, we should not have made all those apocalypse movies. Like, this is definitely coming true. Now I know what Hollywood is about. It's just a big harbinger. So, but really trying to figure out again, and having kids, and trying to understand what the world is going to be for them, and feeling a responsibility to do everything you can to make it make as much sense as you possibly can when you yourself have no idea what's coming. So thank goodness we're here now and we can have this conversation, but we sure didn't know.
So over to you, Kellie. I'll just disclose that the whole wavelength idea from its inception was a conversation that Kellie and I had. And I'll relay what you were thinking amidst those times and then what prompted you to reach out.
Similar, I was at work and said, just go, take everything, off you go. And just in the early stages of that spring a year ago, just heading home. I also have a background in social anthropology, so I'm just checking the temperature of this changing culture, and this gray cloud, not like a nice Chinook, is coming in. And how do we navigate something we don't know? And so in that mandatory isolation, doing what we all do, check with family and friends, cope, relate to loved ones, and spend a lot of time alone. And watch. And then I'm just in my sort of observation, anthropologist, artist, happy place, and observe. I thought, okay. Like our elder said, this is new. We all ain't been here before now. We all don't know what this is. And we all know it's going to change all things. And through that cloud looming, humanity warms my heart. And there's light. There's beacons. There's lights of gratitude from the banging pots. There's lights of resiliency through frontline workers. There's all these beacons of light in the Leonard Cohen crack that things come through. And it's unique to our lifetime and our clock ticking. Okay, hello. I want to grab this. And as an artist, make something that represents this, reminds us of this, has us interact with this, has us connect with this. So there I am in my apartment brainstorming and went, I love cSPACE. I love what they did with King Edward. Who runs that joint? Deeter, he sounds cool. And there I was, dear Deeter, I have an idea. And off we went. So if you need more time after for an example of taking something from A to Z for his performance preview, I'd be happy to provide you with further information to acclaim to his abilities. For real. So here he is, an artist, sending a random email, and he grabs it. So we Zoom, we talk, we brainstorm, we float happily with different ideas to layer it into something. And then he takes his skill and passes it on. And then it becomes something. So here I sit on this day, having planted a seed, and so warmed by all these things that grew and developed from it. Different than like me doing a painting, and that's my baby. This I'm just honored to have, had a moment in this moment that became something to be remembered, to be on your good part of your clock ticking. And so it is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had several amazing conversations, just kept looping back and said, how does this take shape? This needs to happen, but how do we give it something? And so it just so turned out that I had a board meeting coming up, and I raised the charge and I said, hello folks, we need to do something now. We can't call ourselves community builders if we're closing the door and closing up cSPACE and just saying we're going to wait this out. We need to do something. And so I said, we need to create a creative activation fund. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what we're going to use it for. But there's artists who are on the front lines, so to speak. They were the first to shut down. And they're going to be the last to come back. We're already seeing that it's hard to get people in seats again, right? So what we did, and thanks to the board, and I applaud the board, they said, okay, Deeter, let's do this. And there was enough of a fund there that I could go out in confidence and start talking to other people to see whether we could give this legs. And so that Creative Activation Fund gave birth to the Wavelength, and we framed it out and said, okay, we want you to engage the community and engage a diverse of community as possible, because clearly we're amidst a health crisis, frontline workers, Black Lives Matter, and it's obviously that envelope is growing. We're talking about residential schools now within the frame of this time. And so we put the call out, and Andy saw this call, and he was the respondent to it. And so maybe just relay a little bit about that story, how you saw it, how you came to it, what it provoked for you.
First of all, you're amazing. Just want to say that. It's like all kinds of love. Yeah, I saw that call, and I was like, is this somebody's thesis project for the most ideal project ever? Like, is this real? Can this? Obviously, that's a theme with me, but it blew my mind that this could be happening, especially at that time. Completely, did not seem possible. So I thought, okay, I'll play this game. So I applied, and of course met Deeter and Maxime, and had a conversation. We were on the road somewhere, and pulled over, and Tara and my mother-in-law went out and got coffee and knocked on the window every half hour because we were having such a great talk. And what this concept and proposal and idea and world of opportunity was laid out, and it happened pretty quickly. I mean, I felt really confident about what the work was because I had a long life and a lot of experience engaging in that way. So I thought, yeah, man, this is exactly right. And there were a lot of organizations, ones that we're associated with, the people we know, who weren't acting, and and that really did create a void. It wasn't just silent; it was actually negative energy. It was like it sucked energy out of people when there were organizations that you came to depend on as representing you culturally, in any way, that suddenly were silent like cricket, and you needed them. So the fact that was such a conscious act, like just a huge love and respect for having made that decision and made that happen, because it means everything. So yeah, and I got the job. Here we are.
Awesome. We were very fortunate. Like I said, this wouldn't have happened if we didn't have the support of the board, support of partners, Rockwood included, and the Edward next door. But LeMay also came on, and we've been having an ongoing conversation about how they could support us in our community building efforts. So maybe, Grace, do you want to just talk a little bit about that, where you saw alignment and how you saw the importance of the work that this could be?
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, there's so many things that come to mind. It's a loaded question. But when we first started understanding what the project was, what it could be, there was this overwhelming sense of relief that there was a collective effort, this initiative to take stock of the moment in time that wasn't being tallied on CBC or the Herald or the Sun or whatever in terms of the statistics of what's happening. It was going to be about what the community was feeling, and it was the pandemic, it was the multiple crises of the moment that are ongoing and continue to be sustained as this critical moment in time. So there was something really striking, and the sense of relief that you could get behind and do more and do good. And everyone I work with and all that we do, we are creatives, and there's this like plethora of creative individuals, and as everyone has been talking about it, there's such so many ups and downs in terms of how the creative group has been crushed, inspired by this multitude of crises. So overall, it felt really good that we were going to have a record and a way of beautifully recording that moment in time that when we reflect back, when we're looking at this in decades to come, it's been held, and we can maybe learn from it, maybe grow from it, we can design new spaces from it, we can create art from it, we can do all of these like wonderful things. But if it was just the headlines in the news, which when you go on Google normally that's what you find, no one else was doing it. No one else was having that conversation at the moment. We were all so paralyzed, so it was really, really great to hear about, and we of course wanted to support. So.
That's a great word, thinking about being paralyzed, because I certainly, everybody's lives were turned up and over, and those with young kids were trying to teach kids while teaching. My wife's a teacher, teaching online and trying to pretend like everything was okay, and clearly it wasn't. And yeah, I applaud the artists for sort of going out there and try to figure it out, try to process. So Andy, do you want to just maybe set up that community engagement piece, and then we'll go to the video?
Sure, yeah. I mean, as I mentioned, it felt really like, yeah, I got this. Like, I know how to work with people. Like, we can make art together, and it's going to. So, I mean, I think I came here and we got to know each other, and part of the thing was a plan of action by the end of August, and I'm pretty sure that was second week of August or something like that. So it was we were moving quick, and for good reason. But then suddenly you're like, oh yeah, no, we can't get in a room and make art together. Like, we can't do that. I forgot, because we were still waking up to what that was. And so then it's like, okay, so what is this paradigm? How do you collaborate without being together and connected? And then all of a sudden it was like that, there's just the air got sucked out in a way. Didn't take away the energy for wanting to make it happen, but it really, the void started to, like that big bunch of black smoke was like, oh, this is hard. This is hard for everyone in personal levels. It's hard for us pragmatically. This is new. So we put the call out, and the stuff that started coming back it was curious. It was dribs and drabs. There was a sense of isolation in the work that came forward. People were sending work as individuals, not as a collective or a community. It was different. So we realized pretty quick that we had to do something to try to engage collectively in a way that we would be able to actually hear each other in process. That ended up being the actual art that needed to be built, was how do we do that? How do we call out to each other across these voids that we've never been in before? So that started to make it important to create spaces where we could actually stand in a room together, and that's what we did here in this room. I talk about it in the video, so I won't double up too much, but the first thing we did, though, was take the call out very literally, which is what matters now, and we went out into the street, and we went outdoors, and we just set up with people and said, tell us what are you dealing with, what's going on? And we documented those, knowing that would somehow make its way into the final piece, just to hear people speaking their truth in the moment. So that's what those captures were about.
And do you want to go to that right now? Perfect. So we have a video clip of some of those community testimonials that Andy captured going out and speaking with people.
I'll offer that we engaged with community members and youth to make these videos as well. That was part of the process, was getting people together to actually do the work.
What matters now?
Hey, my name's Davey Jerry. I'm the camera
Hello, my name is
operator
Trevor
for this
Solway,
video,
and today we
interviewed
some people about what matters now.
My name's Mad Runner Rabbit.
Hey, my name's Davey Jerry.
Seven Chiefs
I'm the camera operator for this video,
and I'm helped out with the camera and also did the boom. Hi, my name is Mad Runner Rabbit. I'm at the Seven Chiefs Sportsplex, and I helped out with the camera and also did the boom, and that's pretty much it. Just kidding.
What matters now?
What matters now to me is finding the opportunity to slow down and work on ourselves and deal with our past traumas. And then from there, I think it's working with our communities and providing opportunities for them to heal.
Just giving a helping hand to somebody that's in need. And that's what I work for every day and something I strive for.
I think what matters now is family, love, and happiness.
A lot of the guys that I grew up with in the oil patch, we work all over the world. And yeah, there's just nothing out there. And that's what matters, just no economy, you know, just what do you do?
The healing of everybody.
There's a lot of real wrongs going on in the world between human beings and races. And it'd just be great if we could all kind of live together.
Family values, culture, pride, and with all that, they're all in a combination of making a healthy, happy family.
Those things I enjoyed in life, I set aside for many, many years, and through this time, it was good to go back and do those things all over again.
I just think everyone should learn how to be kind to one another.
Empowering youth so that they can be successful and live out all of their dreams.
I work with about 15 other women all across Canada, and we all do trades, and there's no money transaction. We're all empowering each other. We all work together. A lot of us are single mothers, and we all kind of just bring each other up.
I think love, happiness, and family is what matters now.
If we just gave Indigenous knowledge a chance, because a lot of the Western science is just catching up to what we knew all along, you know, and if we just gave it a chance all together as one.
Our things around our traditions and our culture, and those were given to us, those were here thousands of years ago, and they're going to be still here thousands of years ahead of us.
Moving forward with, I guess, encouraging other youth to, explore the world, and one of the best ways to do that is with education.
What matters now is healing. The community, the people, yourself, the children, the youth, the future, the past.
And since the pandemic happened, what matters to me the most is human connection.
That people stay positive and make sure that we're all helping each other out.
We might not know the roadmap to life, but we need to keep making those steps in the direction we want to go, no matter what's happening around us.
Nelson Mandela once quoted that we need, in order to survive as a human race, we need to be one nation, and that's a rainbow nation.
Hi, I'm Abia Mirage for Wavelength, and it is some crazy times right now, so what better ways than to celebrate with a rainbow? We need anything more than now is unity, so come together, have some fun, show some love, and go find a rainbow.
Y estoy grabando esto para el proyecto Wavelength. Lo que importa ahora y what matters now es que seamos una comunidad más fuerte, que seamos resilientes a las oportunidades que nos presenta el futuro y seamos muy positivos. Gracias.
Respect. Just being there for each other.
Change, excitement, and hope.
Our health. And our health also means don't become cuckoo. So our mental health. And our physical health, sometimes we underestimate fruits and vegetables. Keep eating fruits and vegetables. Lots of water and walking outside.
Just self-reflect and self-educate. You're never too old or too wise to keep learning.
And I think I should develop more closer friendships and strengthen my relationship with my family.
Right now, what matters most, I think, is community. Tenemos que estar unidos, tenemos que seguir siendo humanos and supporting each other and helping each other get through this. It's hard for everybody, but we're trying to get through it together.
And make sure you're always wearing your mask and a smile underneath.
Family and those values, they're really, that was everything, and that came out of everyone. So if this is what it took for us to hear that from deep inside of ourselves and from each other, it's as Leroy mentioned, there's COVID has a spirit and has an energy, and we do believe it's here to teach us something. So if that's part of what we need to know and feel and be reminded of, then that's what it's about.
Yeah, it's so great to see it again and remember that we don't have all the answers on our own. and you hear the diversity of voices, and you go, oh yeah, I didn't think about that, Vegetables, fruit and vegetables, folks. But what was missing from that? So that was a really diverse community response. What about the artistic response?
We did that. We did a straight up call out. We just sent it out to everybody we could through cSPACE channels, and as mentioned, it was quite a very odd mixed bag. I mean, people sending a mosaic of the Mayflower, which was awesome that you're doing mosaic, really, but it's that's not quite exactly that's a message that maybe isn't where we want. So it became clear that we needed to, curate's not the right word, but we needed to invite the kind of energy that we knew would lift everyone together at the same time. I speak to that a little bit in one of the other videos, but I will offer that that energy exchange happened right here in this room, and it became really apparent that for those of us who make our lives sharing space in real time with real people, that was gone. And we needed to find a way to keep that alive in ourselves and in each other. So we worked hard working with the resources that were right here in this building to make that come back. And it did within the context. So yeah, it was a difficult, and again, I addressed. I don't want to repeat myself too much because I do speak to it in the next video. But the straight up call out, it just seemed to in some ways kind of re-articulate the isolation. So we realized we had to work to do this. We had to kind of bring people together, and so it became more of a real time exchange as opposed to just calling for people's reactions to COVID. That was a bit of a tricky thing to do. So that's how we moved into what we did in this space, which we'll see more of in the video, and which again all leads towards what happened outside. Is that my
yeah, that's. And I think what happened in that process is we made this space available. Obviously, it was being underutilized, and we allowed performers and artists to come into the space and connect with Andy. So should we just cut to the reel?
Certainly can. I mean, I know we're watching a lot of video, but it kind of speaks to the project, and then maybe we can talk more about it afterwards. Yeah. Is the next one? Is it the? Yeah. It's the. Okay. Good. Yeah.
This mess. They said that I helped take the wild out of the West. Yeah, they know my name, but my deadly aim is something to defeat. I am the king of this here town. Set them up all gladly now. Said I didn't fight fair. Well, sometimes you have to shoot from behind to get here from there. Yeah, they know my name, and my deadly aim is something to defeat. I am the king of this here town. Set them up all gladly now. Some called me the sheriff, but I prefer judge. Keeper of final score, holder of grudge. Yeah, they know my name, and my deadly aim is something to
to a realm of understanding of what he or she sees now, because what is or what isn't really it at all. You see, for light years, realities are created by the divine mind of creative beings.
With my star and my gun, I'm a force of one.
This poem is called I Can.
And I am going to repeat myself a little bit, but I feel credit is necessary. Tara and I were at home tuning into a performance that Maxime was doing, which was online. And while we were watching that performance, drag performance, we became quite moved by the fact that we weren't able to do that. This is early days, pandemic. So that's when we did, as I described earlier, we called people in. So everything you saw there happened right there, like right where that little piece of orange tape is. That's where that all went down. So we brought in our lights, created this space. I stood far back. People came in, and we almost all cried the second we walked into this room. Because these are people whose entire existences revolve around that moment, that beauty, that exchange. So it meant everything that this project gave us an opportunity to have those moments. When Wakefield walked in, it was explosive. Like it was, I mean, we both knew how important this was. And I'll offer that Maxime and I have been working on a project since that first improvisation that we can talk a little bit more about later, but it gave birth to a whole other course of development and creation that is really almost just getting started. So Brenn as well, who we'll see later, came in and offered some spoken word as well as that old style jingle. These are really unbelievably special moments to share during a time when we barely could find each other in that darkness. So that's what that was. Yeah.
I think that's a great point to make, because I think, like I mentioned, theater, performance artists, musicians, everything dried up instantaneously. Some of us have been able to pivot, we go on the computer, but for those who have an embodied practice, all of a sudden they didn't have an outlet. And so maybe, Wakefield, do you want to speak to what that was like coming in here, connecting with Andy?
There are some cathartic moments I've had in my career, and this was one of them. The reason being mostly is because if you cast your minds back to being in school, you learn about this, that, and the other thing that happened. World War I, II, whichever war, depends on when you're born. But you learn about stuff usually that's happened. And it's happened over there, or it's local, or it's centralized something. But it doesn't happen to you. As we heard our esteemed elder mentioned, this hit the globe. It hit us at once. One of the greatest things about making this happen was it was during a time where everyone was feeling something for the same reason, at the same time, no matter where you were, in one of those, whole countries to Beverly Hills, it hit you. I was coming together with other creatives at a very crucial, delicate, vulnerable, dismal, uncertain time. It wasn't done when everyone was feeling good unicorns and rainbows. It's easy to feel happy, and it doesn't change much. It's when humans are at their worst. It's when you are going through grieving because of death, depression, mental unwellness. That's when we see the mettle of man. And if we all do that together, I think we have a better chance. Using the parlance of my people, Africans, we have a proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. I think that's what we did And I think that's what we're all still doing.
That's awesome. So just before we take a break here, I would like to introduce Brenn Royale. And Brenn was one of the artists that contributed to the Wavelength. And Brenn has agreed to join us today to share a little bit about herself, what matters to her, and share a performance with us before we take a break. So welcome. I'll get you a microphone.
Test.
Hello? Oh, there we go. Okay, Natanako Spayaki. My government name is Brenn Royal, without the E. So I'm a member of the Siksika Nation, which is part of the Blackfoot Confederacy. Tonight was so inspiring so far from what I experienced, and I just want to thank Andy for giving me that invite at the time when they were working on these projects. It was really hard for me to come here tonight. Me and my family, we had just buried my mom just under 6 days ago, so I had to really question about coming. And a lot of the conversations that we talked about, that were said tonight, talked about grief and these things that happen in our life that are so unexpected. And just that reflection, like the elder had said, having that reflection. And I'm so glad I came tonight because for me, art has always been medicine and dancing has always been medicine. And it's something that I've been doing in Calgary for the past 8 years. And one of the biggest inspirations to me tonight was, I have a little boy and he grew up in, I'm always rushing him all over because we always have this joke that we run on Indian time, and that's my Indian name, Indian time jokes. But I'm always rushing, right? And he's always with me. And these are the spaces that I want him to grow up in love and understanding, and just having those pieces and those tools to be part of community. So I just, tonight I wanted to speak to a little bit of that, and how when we come together, especially now when they were like, is this for real? Like, am I dreaming? And I say the same thing. It's been 2 years since I've actually done a public performance like this for the city of Mohkinstsis, known as Calgary. So I just want to thank you guys for having me today. One thing that matters to me most is when we move forward in the art world and we look at old buildings like this, the thing that I think about most is being able to occupy the space as a Nitsitabi Indigenous person, because it wasn't that long ago we weren't allowed to even leave our reserve. So to be able to stand here and share this medicine with you guys now, and not on my reserve, in the city, surrounded by community, a very multicultural community, and people from all walks of life, that's so beautiful to me, and that's what matters to me. So tonight in my performance, I felt it was very important to incorporate that message in my dance. So this song that you're gonna hear was created by an artist called Superman. His real name is Christian Parrish, and he's a relative of mine from the States. And he does the same thing. He dances, but incorporates that contemporary piece. So on top of the traditional dance, I like to do hip hop dance. So in a lot of my pieces that I've been able to give to the city of Mohkinstsis, this is one of them. And so in the beginning, there's a message, And that message is so important. And I'm so proud when he released the song, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, yes, because, you know, now we're here, now we're taking up space and we're occupying these places as who we are. And I just want to thank you guys for having me, for Deeter for inviting me out, and Andy, and then all these amazing artists here that, you know, give their gifts as well in their medicine. So thank you.
So we went to all the powwows when we were young. At that time, children could not dance. Only people over 50 years of age could dance. Most people do not know this, that the government forbid children to dance Indian. And that was so they could wipe out the culture and the young people, and then finally the new generation would never know what happened, never know what happened.
Don't you even know how to be a real Indian?
I guess not.
Oh shit, no wonder, jeez. I guess I'll have to teach you then, ain't it? Don't you even know how to be a real Indian?
I guess not.
Oh shit, no wonder, jeez. I guess I'll have to teach you then, ain't it?
Everyone, we're going to take a 15-minute break and carry on. Thank you.
All right, just a second, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Oh, man.
What's the one you're thinking? Oh, we got time. It's Empire, Imagine once, please take it twice.
Sounds great. All right, everybody, welcome back. Let's give a little round of applause again to James Watson and Danielle Pelton on the thing. I think a lot of us are feeling sort of an undercurrent of what we've experienced. People have been coming up to me and saying, "Man, you just don't realize what's underneath, what you mask, and what brings it up." And obviously, art is such a critical part of allowing us to feel and channeling. So what we'd like to do today, the second half, is we're going to move through to the exhibitions and the cubes, the kind of final manifestation. Have another performance. Wakefield's coming up here, and we'll move on right away. So over to you, Andy. Do you want to describe what you took from all of that community input and how it fed into the exhibition portion?
Yeah, it was really the project was laid out very articulately already, and so I was working just to kind of fulfill those, I don't want to say demands, but desires, or those like inclinations, those invitations, by that combination of calling for contributions and bringing people together in this space, going out to community and gathering that really just direct, heartfelt input, and turning it into something that it could be considered an exhibit or something that we could be experienced in various ways, and then leading towards what would ultimately be an installation outside in the cubes. So the first part of that was filling this building with art, and there was that little window there before we kind of re-locked down when we were like, yay, this is happening, and we were able to put some art out on each floor of the building, and we spent time trying to figure out what would happen on each floor and how we would bring all that kind of diversity of work together. And we made a little video about it, so we could take a look at that. It articulates a little bit about what went in. I realize there's one little section of the installation that I totally forgot to include in the video. I'll speak to it afterwards, and then we'll move on to the cubes. I think it speaks for itself for the most part. So yeah, let's roll tape.
All right, so here we are on the first floor at cSPACE, and this part of the exhibit, this part of the building. All right, so here we are on the first floor at cSPACE, and this part of the exhibit, this part of the building, was dedicated to indefinite arts. And I'm really grateful to Simon at the Rosé Foundation. He asked if we had contacted Indefinite Arts when we were doing some community outreach. And so I did that very day and was able to speak with JS. He responded immediately, excitedly, and I went down and met with everyone, Clayton and Carly, and we talked about various possibilities of how Indefinite Arts community could contribute to 2020 Wavelength. And we discussed the possibility of doing some specific workshops together and making work for this exhibit. And they had just reignited or restarted their programming, first in the city, in fact. And people were coming in and making art collectively. So Clayton and Carly were able to go through the work and choose pieces they knew would resonate with the themes of 2020 Wavelength. Okay, so this is the second floor. And here's where we did our best to create a space that could receive as much of the various community contributions that happened. And the challenge really was that the nature of the work was so diverse that we had to try to forge a space where that work could coexist. Another issue was that in COVID times, people struggled with how to even deal with time or how to stay connected to real time or a schedule. After 5 or 6 months of lockdown, sort of a state of suspended animation, to suddenly have a deadline was a challenge. And the way that translated into this project was that there was quite a lot of excitement and desire, but as that deadline approached, circumstances changed, work did not arrive, but we were able to gather a significant amount from the community, from organizations in the building itself. Some schools participated, some of those you're seeing on the screen right now. And ultimately, this phase 1, phase 2 was really trying to gather information and an understanding on how community work could exist together in phase 3. One of the very exciting aspects was working with Bunny Batista on the third floor, and there he is now, painting on glass. That's the piece we shot in the theater, and I'm excited to say that this concept has infiltrated Bunny's practice, and he expressed a desire to continue to work in this way going forward. And over on this wall here, we can see, this is hard to see because it's against white, but this is the piece that Bunny is working on in that video. And over here, there's a similar piece created by Paula Tim, same setup, and this is her piece here, which also is in rotation on the video on the wall. Another contribution that I'm very excited about is created by Sharon Stevens, and it's a digital memorial, active memorial where people have texted in real time their memories, greetings, love, goodbyes to people who have passed. And she created this real-time digital memorial, also looping on the wall as part of the community contribution behind me. This is the third floor cSPACE. This piece here I love for a few reasons. It's been a long time coming for me as an artist to want to work projecting through layers, and we weren't sure if we were going to work with fabric here or how we would achieve that idea. So I asked Deeter if there were any old properties or old materials or furniture, architectural pieces from the building itself. He took me downstairs into a storage room, showed me a stack of windows, and these are the windows right here. It worked out very well. We were able to incorporate those pieces from the original school into the installation and achieve this work. This piece, of course, is focused on dance, as you can see. And what I love also about this part of the installation is that it encapsulates for me what was a pivotal shift for this exhibit for 2020 Wavelength. Interestingly enough, Maxime Beauregard, who works here at cSPACE, was presenting an online drag performance previously recorded. My partner and I, Tara, at home, tuned in, watched Maxime. And while watching Maxime do such beautiful work, I was very moved by how much our colleagues in the performing arts, people who depend on engagement with audience, are completely bereft of that opportunity at this time. That connection doesn't exist. I was also moved by the fact that there's a theater in this building at cSPACE, a beautiful, gorgeous, multi-use theatrical space, performance space, mostly sitting empty because of pandemic restrictions. So we created this opportunity based on the inspiration from Maxime's work to invite dancers, spoken word artists, musicians into the theater in a controlled environment, document those artists doing what they have spent their lives training themselves to do as performance-based artists, capturing that and bringing it into the cSPACE exhibit in this way. So we're able to use this original work with the understanding that it will be incorporated into a kind of an installation piece to be determined, and we'll see how this translates to the cubes for phase 3 of this work. Really worked to fill each floor with as much work as we could, and I think we did a pretty good job. It was pretty active, and that ran for quite a while. There's one section that wasn't included in that video, which is where we ran those community testimonials in front of the gallery on the second floor. We hung another one of the windows and projected onto the window, so that was in constant loop, people talking about what matters to them, many of whom you heard in that earlier clip. And there was another piece there where we projected the spoken word artists and had an old TV running loops of the protests that were happening south of the border and also here on Turtle Island, and putting that in conversation with itself, also in part of the space. So we really, kind of tried to activate as many spaces as we could with as many voices as we could, and that all was trying to understand what the language of this piece was going to be and how we would then translate it to the work outside, which we can speak about in a moment. So that's what we saw there.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Does anybody want to add anything? Any thoughts? Kellie, you obviously, our early conversations, I remember it was about people contributing stuff, and we were going to do a physical installation in the space.
That was like the initial concept, that we would take this sort of like collage of all the input and memorialize it. So people will have a place to come back to, right? Mm-hmm. So we wanted something permanent, some sort of structure to mark this work, this time, this energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do we want to move on to the last phase then, Andy? And so you can imagine, as an artist, doing all of this incredible community outreach, getting all of this community testimonials and artwork and contributions, exhibiting it and trying to curate it within a physical space, in this case, the hallways of the school. And then to add a third element to say, okay, Andy, incredible artist, designer, take all this input and translate it and let it manifest itself as an exterior artwork out in our public space. So that was the task. So,
When you
Talk
say it
about
like that, it was hard. You know, it was tricky because you know, I mean, I alluded to it a little bit in that video. There were supply chain issues. People didn't know what to do or how to be or how to feel or where to go or if. So the idea of kind of doing this physical installation was daunting, and so then, you know, the budget was great, but it wasn't infinite. So you have to be very mindful of material costs and what's going to live out there, and what's going to last out there, and what is going to reflect this huge amount of inspired offering that has been made by people in the community. And then there's another whole layer, which is the fact that we're on treaty land, Blackfoot Confederacy. We're in a building that represents something quite specific to that community, just the color of the stones and what the building is, and it's called King Edward, and there's a bunch of stuff to unpack there. So what do we do with all that? How do we do something that honors and respects the land and the people and the diversity that's here now and speaks to the future? And so it was it was a tall order. I remember some of the first sketches I showed to Deeter were like, they were like polls that were going like, I was kind of like trying to address like home and what place is and where we live and the kinds of dwellings we create, and you know, and then all of a sudden there's like, oh no, people will fall off of that. You can't make a staircase that goes to the top of the cube so that you can see the land. Like I was doing, you cannot have a 45-foot pole that leads in like they're holding, bunch of them hold up a mirror ball that shines back down to the ground. No, that's not gonna. So there's a lot of that kind of action, but really then coming back to a very much more simple view of what is this land and where are we and what is this territory and how do we call respect to that. And I'm not Blackfoot, so it's not my place to speak directly for or to the community, but I can speak as a person who respects the land that I'm on and the people whose land this is, and wanting to make sure that that space is given. So we went straight to the animals, and we made it as simple of an offering as we could. And so we have those images out there. There was a video, we're not going to show, just to kind of keep things moving here, we won't show the video, but we went straight to those drawings that I was just doing of these 4 animals who are indigenous to this territory as a way of saying, these are the people of the land. And I think of those animals as people, and I think of the people who are here as the people of the land. I mean, side note, most indigenous names for people just mean the people, and that's the self-reflective community names usually are just the people, because that's who we are. All of us in our communities, with ourselves, in our families, we are the people. So trying to speak to that. So what we wanted to do to create this layer of bringing all of that work forward is include this AR/QR digital presence, also as a way of allowing people to engage with it in COVID, because even after the exhibit that happened here, we locked down further. So we weren't allowed to be in spaces together again. So we needed something that people could interact with on their own time, something that you could see in front of the building. That does AR. Some people might know them. There's a mural thing that happens here in town where you hold up your phone and it triggers video from the pattern in the mural or the piece or whatever it might be. So that was 100% the concept behind the cutouts or the drawings that are out there now. But stuff happened. The original design was that they were going to be cut out of wood and sandwiched, and there was a layer, and they'd be waterproofed, and there was a layer of like a waterproof scrim in between them. So it'd be almost an opaque, light and wind could transfer through, but it would have a very solid opacity, which would have created a pattern that when you hold your phone up, triggers those videos, all of which we created here. So you could walk up to that buffalo and you hold it up, and Wakefield pops up in your phone, and you get to hear it.
We can all wish for that.
That was the initiative. What happened, as many of us know, is that wood tripled or doubled or whatever it did in price, and suddenly became absolutely quadrupled in price. And this project that was within budget, cut out plywood thing, suddenly became absolutely unobtainable. And for the first time in my career as a sculptor and an installation artist, steel was cheaper and easier to fabricate than wood. So we ended up getting these things just cut out of sheet steel, which then created other kind of not necessarily go into details, but it created pragmatic issues that eliminated the idea of putting that scrim there. Other things that happened were just labor shortages. So in terms of time and money and people and we wanted to remove the front part of the cube so that they would become like little prosceniums. Things that people could stand in front of and take their pictures in them and really give that kind of access. But We weren't able to do that because of time and money. So we ended up still very happily and excitedly embedded those pieces inside the cubes, speaking a little bit also to what that space is and what those cages are and what it means to see those animals within those spaces. But what that did was it made the AR trigger not work, just to say it bluntly, because there are layers of information. So you know the pattern still would have triggered AR, but then you have a grid in front of it, and if you move your camera, the technology wouldn't register. I talked that through with the AR guys, and apparently next year they're going to work with where it will recognize a color pattern, so we can come back and we can paint those things, and it'll see right through the grid and it'll recognize the pattern. I do hope and believe and offer to cSPACE that when and if that technology meets us, we'll bring those pieces up so that it can do that. Point being, all of those beautiful contributions made by the community are accessible digitally through those images. So really, I don't feel like I did an art piece out there. I feel like I just tried to build a forum that would allow those works to be triggered so that we could visit these amazing artists whenever and however often we choose to. That's what those are about for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So what we did in the meantime was we created banners that you can hold your camera up to, and it still does it. It's just smaller. But we'll get there. It's gonna. I do believe it'll happen. That we'll be able to have that full scale, and it's pretty awesome. If you haven't done it already, I mean, when you get full size AR, you can actually step into the camera, so people can take their pictures with Wakefield, which everybody wants to do all the time, anytime they want on the front lawn of cSPACE. But that's where we are at the moment, yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, we were going to show a video just of the making, but being mindful of time, we're not going to do that. But what I'd like to do, sort of through the power of theater, is actually connect you with the work more intimately. So this is going to be a bit of a collective experiment to see whether we're on the same wavelength here.
Get it?
Catch my drift?
Get it?
So I think, if anything, the undercurrents of the wavelength are about, what matters now. And I think everybody has come to that in their own way. They've had to consider different things related to their family, to their friend, to the global sort of context that we find ourselves in. So within this space right now, we've shared a pretty special time, and I'm going to ask you to kind of participate with me. I want you to think quietly about what you've heard from the community testimonials, maybe some of the thoughts that have begun to emerge for you, memories of what has happened in the past. And I want you to hold that in your mind for a little bit and just think about that. We'll take a pause, take a breath. Feel this sort of neutral black space that we're in. And now I want you to think about that person or that experience or that piece of nature that was meaningful. And maybe step a little bit further to go, okay, how can I honor that person? Or how can I honor that idea or that challenge or that problem and see a brighter future, perhaps? Take a breath. And now I want you to sort of imagine that we can just transform this space. And we can see the world differently through art, through creativity. Maybe possible. So at the beginning of this, I said, wish us luck. Say, yes, we can. Yes, we can. So I want you to repeat after me, and we'll see if anything remarkable happens. Yes, we can.
Yes, we
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
One more time. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
There we go.
Are our minds doing this right now?
100%.
There is something happening. There we go. So, thank you, everybody. That was easy. Yes, we can. Thanks to technology, curtains, all of this stuff, we can transform the space. All this to say is that immediately outside are the wavelength artworks that Andy created that pull in those community responses, that animate the public space. And our hope was, in the inception of this idea, was that as people come through and visit King Edward and the cSPACE space, or walk through the parks or be in the neighborhood, that they'll take a moment to pause to appreciate the work, the sculptures, and also take in those other community responses that were added and contributed in a meaningful, active kind of way. Is there anything you want to talk about, Andy, just in relation to those works?
No, I mean, you've said it all, and I'm also grateful that I was away when on Orange Shirt Day, but just thank you for initiating and making that the ribbon campaign happen here on site. That meant a lot. We were, my partner and I were in Winnipeg at the time, and obviously it's a especially profound day there. For anybody who knows Winnipeg, you probably know why. It's a tough city, but in that respect. But that meant a lot to see that, and I hope that can continue to grow, and that it continues to be a place for that kind of recognition and realization and understanding and connectivity. Yeah, and I look forward to the ongoing growth and continuing to develop what this is. I think it matters.
That's awesome. Yeah, this, when we started this project, who would have thought that we'd have this notion of colonial implosion and realizing the kind of devastating impacts of residential school systems and so forth. And so, everything happened quite quickly, but we put it out into the community and just said, if you feel like you want to come and pay tribute, do. And we didn't make a big deal about it, but it was remarkable how many people came throughout the day with, in some cases, their own ribbons to tie on that piece. There was visitors from Scotland who were here on holiday, meeting their family that was here, and decided to come out to partake in the event because they felt like it mattered and it was important. So it's incredible when you kind of think about the frame of what's been captured through a project that has had this kind of duration to it. I want to shift gears a little bit here, and in the spirit of Yes We Can, I think it's really important to recognize that community projects like this don't happen on their own. They require partners and supporters, and I've mentioned those that have sponsored the project. But in a lot of cases, some of the most impactful and invested champions are families and family foundations and friends. And so it gives me really great pleasure, I'm going to stand up here for a second, to acknowledge Robert Ollerenshaw, who's right over here in his family fund. As some of you know, Robert Ollerenshaw's company, Section 23, has developed the Edward next door. And we've come to know each other quite well over the duration of this project in Robert's multiple connections to what we're doing. But I want to say that what's remarkable about Robert is he's deeply tied and rooted to his family history just southeast of the city, which is now within city limits, I imagine, and but also shares a love and a vision for architecture and the opportunities of development and community building. And so even before we had a shovel in the ground, Robert's support of the vision of what this vacant site could become was readily sort of supported and championed and felt. And from an intellectual point of view and a design thinking point of view and an aspirational point of view. And so we've come to realize that we, at cSPACE, we have quite a bit in common with Robert. One, an appreciation for the arts and the value that it brings to our civil society. An excitement around creative entrepreneurship and the role of design and arts and artistry and what that can bring to our community. And then also a belief in architecture and placemaking that can enrich the character, the heritage, and ultimately the vibrancy of what our cities should be and can be, and with the vision to bolster that. So I'm really pleased to acknowledge Robert as a friend, as a colleague, and a trusted kind of partner in this endeavor, and welcome you to the stage to share a few words. center stage, that is.
Thank you, Deeter, for the generous introduction. Good evening, everyone. I think what I'll do, I'll just begin my conversation about how did I become an architect and what happened from growing up in the ranch to the farm. When I was 15 years old, my father came to me and said, "Robert, you're never going to become a rancher." Well, I was shocked, because everyone else went into ranching or farming or whatever. But he said, "You better think of something you love to do." And that was architecture. So I remember working towards that and everything else. And it really did change my life tremendously. And over time, I was able to design houses for clients and everything else. And then the opportunity of the east side here for the Edward came up, and I thought, wow, that's terrific. Seniors, the arts, that's one way to get them involved and creative. And that's worked out very well, actually. We've had many acknowledgements for the success of it. And I'm also developing a new community in Calgary, Calgary's first farm-to-table community, where it's based on garden to table. So it's really a very unique approach to developing a community. So even though I could have been a rancher, I was able to really do something different and make a change in this world. So just want to give you a little bit of background to how I got here. Anyway, it was a pleasure to be here this evening to support cSPACE and celebrate the 2020 Wavelength Project. I'm proud to be a part of this important celebration of art, local culture, and perspectives of art in the pandemic. Thank you to lead artist Andy Moro for sharing these perspectives on what matters now. When Deeter approached me about supporting this project, I saw it as a natural fit for the Edward and the Section 23 developments. I've been drawn to art cubes at cSPACE since their inception, as they represent so many opportunities for artistic expression. The exploration of the question, what wavelength are you on, through the phases of the project culminating in the sculptural artwork installation of the 4 art cubes outside cSPACE, really resonated with me. I was drawn to cSPACE from its early days, and I'm honored to have had a role in contributing to its vision. I'm a passionate supporter of the arts, innovation, community building, diversity, inclusion, and multi-generational connections. These values are shared by my team at the Edward in Section 23 and tie nicely to cSPACE's core values. cSPACE is a playground for creativity, community, and collaboration, and an accessible place of inclusion and diversity. It is a community I'm so very proud to be a part of. From the beginning, the Edward was conceived as a fresh approach to seniors living. Its origins inspired by my passion for the arts, architecture, and most of all, building relationships and strengthening communities. The Edward is Calgary's ultimate address for retirement living. cSPACE is truly a one-of-a-kind place for Calgary in the heart of Waterloo. I cannot imagine a better location to develop synergies between the arts community and seniors aging in their community. And as always, we are enormously proud to be your neighbor. Thank you, Deeter.
Thank you. So together with Robert, we're going to be recognizing their generous gift, and we're going to be installing a plaque because it's tied to these art cubes, providing the infrastructure for this work to begin, to start, and obviously we're going to be layering on histories as it's utilized by artists on an ongoing basis. So the inscription on the plaque is going to read, "Creativity takes courage, be brave." And I think amidst the Wavelength Project and what our artists have brought, what the community have contributed, obviously the bravery and courage is a critical part. So thank you, Robert. I appreciate it. So to wrap up here this evening, what I'd like to do is just have a really quick general conversation about the role of the arts in the pandemic and what we've learned from the project. Open it up to any questions if people have a burning question for the panel up here, and then we'll move on to a final performance by Wakefield Brewster. So Does anybody want to kind of lead the charge? Anything that they're wanting to say amidst this remarkable time?
Yeah, I'll start it off. I mean, from seed to fruition to expansion to growth to engagement to collaboration, here we are from a, I wonder if, you know? It's kind of a big thing. It speaks to hope. It speaks to what matters now. It speaks to what if. It speaks to what now. What else could we do? If we could come together in that time and do this and engage, it's very hopeful to me as to what else can happen. So I say, to what matters now, what now, and what else?
Can we hang out after this is done?
How do you build on that? No, I think picking up on the hopeful note, I think there's hope and I think there's urgency because we've been able to collectively recalibrate as a society. We have gone through this tremendous collective event. There's a moment of truth where we're intimately connected with the arts environment in our cities. We're not flying 5,000, 10,000 kilometers to go consume art anymore. Okay, we have digital access for sure, but we're so connected to the places that we're in, and we have these really meaningful moments in our communities with the artists that are creating in them. There's this deep appreciation. So it goes back to this. We have a chance to continue to reframe where our values are and what happens next and how we go forward. So I think there's hope. I think that there's progress to be made. I think that we're on a tipping point. We keep pushing. We keep expanding what we value in society. So we can. There's so much room for everyone's collective values. So I think that is what happens maybe next. And that requires everyone continuing to do these tiny little meaningful moments continuously and constantly. So anyways, I made it through this entire discussion without shedding a tear on stage, and I'm really proud of that.
It's fun moments.
But you still have to perform.
I think I could probably just contribute best there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Should I do that?
You could.
Is that what you're looking for?
Did you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
You're good. All right. There we go.
Okay.
What matters to you?
Well, let me just get myself ready to do this. What matters now, what matters to me, what matters now is giving you this poetic contribution because it really seems to be in line with a lot of the themes that we've heard up here. I've heard this ability to achieve. I've heard we can. I've heard it several times. And I don't think that's a trite thing to quote. I don't think it should be loosely said. I don't think it should be said like in the same fashion as, can we all just get along? It's not a light statement to make. The way I would like to contribute to the overall feel and vibration and celebration of our gathering is with a particular poem that Deeter asked me to perform, that Andy filmed when I shared this space with them. And it's a poem called I Can. This poem reflects the story of a young me who became a childhood alcoholic at the age of 8, and then a substance abuser by 18, and I didn't stop drinking until 5 years ago. I'm not 18 anymore. It's been a long time. And I wasn't supposed to make it to 20, 30, and I'm not telling you where I am now. But I'm still here, and it comes down to a lot of believing that you can. And that took a long time, as you've heard in those years. So when I perform this poem for you, I want you not to just hear, see, and feel the trials and tribulations of me going through my problems, especially in the educational system with all these ACEs, I would like you to take away these two major things that I believe are for all of us. And that is when you have that sense of conviction to do something, to do anything, to be what you want to be, to do what you want to in this world, that raison d'etre. You will hear you can't. You'll hear it from friends, family, enemies, frenemies, pretendees. You'll hear from strangers. All I can say is this. When you have that sense of conviction and you feel that you must, and people say you can't, two things. You probably can, and you probably should. This poem is called I Can. After a decade of delivery on the MIC, unbelievably, people still asking me, what can you do with poetry? That question used to make me angry. It used to get me hot. Now I tell them have a seat and ask them how much time they got. For you see, with poetry, I can. Duly dance down those same halls of learning where I once had the yearning to be a well-accomplished human with a 4.0. But my GPA was sadly way far below. I never got the knack of the educational flow. They made me sit still. So I stood still. I can comfortably cruise into classrooms where I was once coerced to create a captured, cornered mental state so I could clearly create a way to hate my own mind by my educators. They were educators. They formed a form to form my formative years, tainted with intolerance and a tidal wave of tears that sailed all of my dreams away from me. For they likened my self-image with one of stupidity. It was all that I heard and all that I could see. I can now be free. Where I was once imprisoned by a mental prison. My errant play thoughts were like hot-colored rocks. Endless ammunition for the slings of possibility, but impossibly. All of my targets eluded me. For I was living in the kingdom of couldn't be me. I couldn't see the lock, so I didn't need the key. And when they finally let me go, they said, you don't know poetry. I can versify being victimized into a valiant victory. Verify that when you verify, you eventually gotta do with me. The transformation was tremendous. I took the word stupid and I made it stupendous. I began to manhandle the land of language that languished in apathetic and anonymous anguish. I did decide to dissect and divide indefinitely, indubitably, what diction was due to me. Stab a psyche with a simile, sometimes slip left of center C so as to step up into a soliloquy. Hail the English alphabet with an oral atrocity. I can wear the face of mental agility, dispel the myth of dental fragility, and proudly embrace my so-called disability. ADD, ADHD, OCD, PTSD. Now I've made an acronym for maniac out of me, and never once before have I so ever loved an E. I can turn my inventive imagination into a physical infatuation, not like sugar, not the hard refined, not like sweetener, not the artificial kind. I don't need heroin because I'm a hero in my own mind. Spent some time with my mentality, and what I did find is I can learn. And poetry taught me when the truth was unfurled, I'm the only one man who can change my world, so I can do anything. What can I do with poetry? I ask you. Why don't you tell me?
Yes.
No big deal.
Yes.
That's a wrap.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks to the panel. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to our partners, our supporters, my amazing staff. I think we can. We're going to invite James and Daniel back out. There's no need to rush away. Stay as long as you'd like. This has been a wonderful time. Thank you all.
Okay, 1, 2, 1.